Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and I'm here with Georgie Howe and Gracie Elvin to talk about women's professional road cycling. We've got Amstel Gold Race, Brabantse Pijl, and the final two one-days of the spring coming up. Gracie, hello. Good day.
Hello. G'day. I'll say g'day for Lauren. We've been missing her.
Yeah, we'll get her back eventually. I'm sure of it. Georgie?
Yeah, I miss Lauren quite a bit. Hey guys, what's up? How we doing?
Yeah, she really brings like a certain something to the podcast, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she's bringing something to other people's work and her own work. So we're proud of her doing other stuff. She's a busy lady.
Yeah, and I have one person in the waiting room just in case Lauren is busy, who is going to be a really awesome guest, I think, on the pod. She's going to bring a totally new accent to our podcast if indeed we need her to come. Couple world championship jerseys as well with her. So just floating that.
Yeah.
See if anyone can guess. All right, we will start out the podcast with a little bit of news instead of diving straight into the racing. Just an interesting announcement that happened before Amstel Gold Race, and that is Marianne Vos's indefinite contract with Visma Lease Bike. Like Wout van Aert before her, she's signed a basically career-long deal with Visma. I initially panicked because I thought it was a retirement announcement, but no, she's going to continue on for, as long as she wants with Visma Lease Bike.
Yeah, I just got a healthy dose of skepticism when I saw this announcement. I was like, how old's Vos now? What, 38?
Yeah. No, 37?
She's late 30s. And with a rider of her class, you won't be signing anything less than a 3-year contract. Whatever contract she's going to sign next would see her to the end of her career, most likely. So I just think the whole
37,
the whole wording around indefinite is a bit of a marketing clickbait thing, if I'm brutally honest. All the respect to us, I think she does. If anyone deserves an indefinite contract, it's her. But I think it's just a short class way of saying she's going to end her career at Visma.
Actually, I was thinking about the fact that she's 37 and how many years realistically she has left. Interestingly, this is maybe so last year, obviously she won the first World Tour race she did, which was Omloop. The year before, it took until the Vuelta to win her first race. But normally she's already racking up wins at this point, and she's had a handful of second places, a lot of fourth places, 1, 2, 3, 4 fourth places, 2 second places, but no wins yet this year. And that includes cyclocross, from the beginning of 2025. If you're talking just road, then I think there's been a couple years where it started off slower for her. Like I can't remember which year it was. She didn't win until the Giro. That was 2022. She didn't win until the Giro, but that was after winning cross worlds as well. So that's kind of interesting. Clearly she still got it to be finishing, in the top 4 that many times already this season, including Gracie. And on the road, she didn't start doors. So yeah, 2 podiums already in the World Tour on the road. But yeah, she still got it. But how much longer will she? At least another 2 years, I feel like.
It's hard to know, isn't it? She's still always one of the favorites whenever we're doing race previewing. And even in the race, you kind of she doesn't look that good today, but you just never count her out of a race for multiple reasons. Obviously her talent, but also her tenacity on the bike and that white line fever that she gets. She just goes all in always. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to miss the most when she stops racing, is just how she races. Yeah, I'm a bit with Georgie in it could be 3 years, it could be ages, or it could be actually within this season, and they just trying to keep a secret in a way, or building something up in the way that she would like. So I'm actually quite fascinated to see what race she does as her last race and how they celebrate her in a way that's really special and unique, which she deserves. But she is a low-key person, and I don't think she would want a big hoo-ha. So I think, I hope that she allows people to make it special. So whenever that is, hopefully not this year though.
I wonder if she would continue all the way through LA. Like, I wonder if she would go until 41, or I guess maybe 40 now.
3.5 years.
Yeah. I mean, that would be how many Olympics is that she competed in? She's already done like what, 5 Olympics is in her career?
Is that the plural? Can we just check that?
Olympi?
But yeah, like I don't know her that well, and I don't think she shares a whole lot about her personal life online, and I don't look that much anyway, so I'm not sure really what she wants next and what that looks like for her in terms of next career, building off this profile, massive profile she's got. If she wants to start a family, like, yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into making that decision. But, you know, this has been her life for a really, really long time, and her identity too. So I do hope that she's got some great support there around her and some structure to do that transition well, because that transition is super hard for most of us. And for someone like that has been lauded for so long, that is going to be hard.
Yeah, and maybe this whole rhetoric around the indefinite contract, as to Abby's point earlier, it just gives her the time to kind of just figure it out, you know. And what we're saying, like, she has the time to pick her last race. Like, I doubt Annemiek got the luxury. I don't think she would have wanted CMAC to be her last race. Just going to put it out there. But
no, she did.
She did?
She chose CMAC as her. Yeah, it was her first. I think it was her first world. Like her first big race that she did in her career, maybe, or
right.
There was, and like close to family, there were ties there. There was a reason that was her last race.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
bit of a swan song, that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
but hopefully
that was purposeful.
But it maybe like Voss actually doesn't know what she wants to do next, and this just gives her one less stress to figure it out.
Yeah, she's done every Olympics since 2008. Just fact checking.
Certainly from a branding point of view, it looks good to have an athlete signing on to a forever contract, because it shows that loyalty, and one of the best athletes of all time wants to retire there. Like, I think like that's actually a big, a great way to market that team and those sponsors.
Yeah, and it's good for her.
Yeah. Up until this year, it was like very much her team. Like pretty much anytime she was on the start line, it was probably because they were riding for her, and she did great work for like Marcus, for example. Like if it was a race that like a GC situation where they were going to ride for Rihanna, but at any given point in a race, like it was for Voss. And up until this year where they have PFP, and now things are changing a little bit within the team where there's co-leaders in the same race. It's her team, it's Voss's team. And I think that's a situation she would want to remain in for the remainder of her career if she has that option. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some bike racing. We had 2 really, really good bike races since we recorded last. Brabantse Pijl, which is not a World Tour race, but definitely pulls a World Tour field and is just a great race normally. And it's this kind of transition race from the Cobble Classics into the climby Classics, where you've got climbs and cobbles in Brabants, but it is normally, I mean, it can go many different ways, but the last 2 years it has gone to Elise Lange-Borghini. And it was an interesting kind of lead into Amstel, because I think last year you'd watch Brabants, and I thought I got it mixed up with another race a couple weeks ago, and I blame my postpartum brain for that, where Elise Lange-Borghini just had this incredible performance, and then going into the Ardennes we were like, oh man, Elisa, like she's gonna win Ardennes this year, and then that didn't happen, and she almost won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but did not in the end. And kind of a similar situation happened this week or last week, where Elisa was clearly the strongest rider in the race at Brabantse Pijl, and then going into Amstel, it kind of didn't really mean anything. But Brabants was a really good race. We had, I'm going to let Georgie do the rundown, because she already did in the newsletter. For those who read the newsletter, just a little newsletter podcast crossover for you.
Little newsletter plug. Pretty attritional race, this one. It's got about 19 climbs going between paved and cobbled climbs. So you're not quite done with the cobbles yet of the classics. Really great appetizer to the Ardennes. We get a weird mix of riders, those just hanging on from the Flandrian classics and those really gearing up. They've come down from altitude and gearing up for the Ardennes later that week. So we had Elisa Longoborghini fronting up to the start line after her concussion in Flanders. So it was she was a bit of a question mark as how she would perform. We had the likes of Brodie Chapman there, Niamh Fisher-Black, and a pretty decent SD Works team on there as well. No Demi Vollering, which is a notable absentee from this race. But we had the likes of Misha Bredewald, Sylvia Persico from UAE, Letizia Paternoster from Liverpool-Jaco, Anna Henderson from Little Trek, and also Doriana Marcus from Little Trek as well. And it was those riders that really animated the race. There was a break that went clear at about 50 kilometers to go with the likes of Brodie Chapman. It also included a new recruit for SD Works Pro Time in Steffi Haberlin. She's a Swiss off-road rider. Niamh Fisher-Black from Little Trek, and Monica Trinca-Connell, the dark horse from Liverpool-Jaco, floated across with her. So there was about seven people in that group. The peloton behind, they weren't too happy with this combination, and they kept the gap under a minute before Evita Muzic from FDJ attacked, bringing it across Sylvia Persico, Longoborghini, Paternoster, Bredewald, Henderson, Voss, and then Longo then decided she would try and go clear there and tried to create some more separation, but then eventually the race all came back together before a really great attack by Oriana Marcus. And to be honest, I was really happy to see that. Marcus has had a pretty tough couple of years, so it was good to see her finding some form and confidence, particularly in her TT ability. Hopefully she can have some more luck heading into the Grand Tours this year. But then the budget came back together and Longo went on what's called, and Abby, I'm going to get you to pronounce this one, the Mosque.
It's the Moscow-Strat, right?
That one, yeah. So, which is named after Longo's husband. So a bit
not really, but
not
little
well,
tie-in.
Little. He always attacked on that climb, isn't that right?
I think it's just because his last name is Mosca, so she it's like a funny, a funny, coincidence. But it's the same climb she attacked on last year. Last year when her and Demi were off the front, the two of them, and she attacked on the Mosca Strat, and she dedicated the win to her husband because she'd attacked on that climb. And so they should have expected it this year. Maybe they did, but
and the peloton's got pretty short memories, it seems. Kind of like us in the political cycle, but I digress. Longo went clear, and just like she promised at Milan San Remo, when she did go clear, it was they wouldn't catch her, and like at Dwars, they did not catch her, and she was able to hang on by a slim margin and get the win and enough time to post up and celebrate.
Yeah, it was a good win. And I don't know if it was a memory loss problem or if it was just that she was so strong when she went.
She's on form.
But when she kind of bridged to that group with Brodie in it, that was like one of the highlights of the race for me, I think, because she bridged to that group and then Brodie just like immediately got on the front and was driving the pace. Like you could tell that it was a race situation that they were really happy with. It brought me back to when they were both on Little Trek, and I think Elisa wanting Brodie to jump over to UAE Team ADQ with her along with Eleanor Backstead. It's just such a great combo of riders and people. They're just good people as well, so you love to see it. But I love to see Brodie just such an incredible teammate. Like people can take notes from Brodie on just how to be a good teammate. And that was just a great moment. There's so many times in bike racing where you have hesitation and that hesitation determines the race. And in the end, Brodie's effort, obviously it would have played some role in the race, like some butterfly effect role, but it wasn't the winning move at that point in time. But that she didn't even hesitate, that there was no hesitation at all. As soon as Elisa was in that group, Brodie was on the front driving the pace. It was just really good bike racing, really good moment.
I really hope Brodie gets her own shot soon. She got a little bit of a shot at Valenciana early this year when she was off the front, although, but one day her efforts will be rewarded.
Absolutely. bringing us into Amstel Gold Race, where we once again, for the second year in a row, had Elise Lange looking just in really good form, and a lot of other top favorites coming into the race. Obviously, Demi Vollering was back, Nieuwedoma, Vos, who won it last year, although last year was such a weird race that you can't really, last year half of the race was canceled, so you can't really compare the two, to be fair. But we had a lot of favorites coming into Amstel Gold Race, and the 2025 tactics remain the same in that you just can't predict it. It was such an interesting finale. Unfortunately, we really only got to see the last like 38K, I think it was, of the world feed when it started, and there was really no footage of the 100K before then where the race materialized. Like when the coverage started, we had a group of 23 riders off the front already, and they had over a minute, and there was all of the top teams represented, with like some with multiple riders, and so it just wasn't going to come back even though all the favorites were behind. And it was like, I don't think we can dive into the race without first commenting on the fact that the race happened before, like obviously the last 30K was phenomenal, especially the last 20K, but there was no setup. There was no understanding of how that race situation happened. In the end, I called up Alison Jackson to ask her how it happened, because they're even like the commentary, which like they're only getting what they're given from the world feed, so it's not their fault. But like obviously the commentary didn't know like exactly what had happened, and the live ticker, like multiple live tickers online, like didn't really know what had happened. We knew that there had been a crash, but it wasn't really clear like how that gigantic move went. So I called Allison to ask her what happened, because she was in that move, and she said that it wasn't really an attack that made that separation. It was actually just like Demi Vollering had crashed. She was out the back and chasing. Anna van der Breggen got on the front for like a whole lap and just drilled the pace really hard. And then someone else continued driving the pace on the Cowberg. And there was just like wheels dropped and separation made. And when they got to the basically the passage of the finish line, there was a group of like 23 that had a little bit of a gap, and everyone behind them just sat up because they, like, all the favorites had a teammate up there. So it wasn't really an attack that made that separation happen. It wasn't aggressive racing per se. It was just like potentially some laziness, some hurt legs, just like let the gap go, and then it was over. But the reason that group survived was really that there was so many favorites had teammates up the road, and so they didn't need to pull it back. We had 3 SC Works Pro Time riders up there with Bredewold, Blanca Vos, and Wiebes, obviously, who would have been like the number one scary presence in that group. We had Little Trek had 2 with Ellen Pendike and Anna Henderson, arguably like their 2 best riders at the moment, that aren't Balsamo. There was like Visma riders up there. We had Puck Peterse up there with Phoenix, and she had a teammate. So EF had like 3 riders in there, I think, with Allison, Noemi Ruig, and one more. So it was like really, it was a huge group of riders that there was no need to bring them back if you were a favorite behind, except for Canyon SRAM, who had riders up there. The only time that there was any kind of hint of the group behind that had Nieuwedoma and Lotte Kopecky and Vos and like all of these favorites in it, the only time there was any like acceleration from that group was the kind of penultimate lap up the Cowberg when Kasia kind of pushed the pace a little bit. You could tell that she wasn't happy with the situation, but everyone else was kind of fine with it. And then we had the real race was happening up the road with that. We'll dig into like how the race was won and everything. But I think it was just like really, really disappointing. The lack of live coverage for this race is what I'm getting at. Because we didn't see any of how it happened. We didn't see Anna van der Breggen on the front. We only saw her like a snippet of her abandoning the race, but no one knew why. And it was just really like in the year of 2025, it was just so disappointing to see.
The requirement for a World Tour race is at least an hour of live coverage, right?
I think it's 45 minutes.
Is it?
Unless they've upped it. They might have upped it in like the recent year, but
yeah, because
originally it was 45.
Yeah, to be fair, the men's race didn't have full coverage either for Amstel, but like you'd expect a bit more for the women. If not, if we're not going to get the whole race, you still would like an hour, hour and a half, like 40, 50K to go is still better, a lot better. Yeah, because I just couldn't, like, when I watched the replay, I didn't watch it live. I just watched it the next morning and I was just going, what is going on?
Yeah, like,
and the commentator, because we didn't do commentary in Australia for it, the world feed commentator wasn't explaining it, and I was just like, how did that group is so big, it's got so many teams represented, it's got good riders in it, it doesn't have all of the favorites especially, but like Weavis is in there. Like, why the hell is she in there? Why would you let her get any advantage in this race? So, like,
yeah.
It was just like, what? And then you see Anna van der Breggen pulling out, and I was like, what's that story about?
Yeah. I feel like I felt bad for the commentators. Like, they couldn't really inject drama into the feed, into the commentary, simply because they had no idea what was going on either. So like they're only seeing what they're getting shown. And we all tune in at 35Ks to go, and we see a group of 23 riders, like quality riders, and Weebus in there. And we're like, questioning what the hell happened.
It's actually a shame too, because the laps are nice. Like that part of the course is good, but like actually the bigger lap has some really interesting parts to it as well, and some of those climbs are interesting to watch. So I'd love to see more of this race, but yeah, the final more than made up for it, I think.
Oh god, yeah. And I think the what happened with like the fact that the bunch propped is an interesting dynamic in cycling. Like, you know, like in a pre-race meeting, you get told if there's a break up the road, we need to be in it. Like, we need to be there. And it's you've got people who get assigned, like, you know, if the break goes, make sure you're in it, like maybe 2 or 3 people. But really, you just want your team represented. If you are represented, then it's like, you're a bit more relaxed in the bunch. You can kind of sit up. It's not your responsibility. And I think maybe that mindset played into a little bit of the fact that the bunch was given a minute 40 with 17 Ks to go. And by that point, it was way too late to bring it back. So like there was just no impetus in the bunch behind because of the mindset, oh, I've got a teammate up the road, I don't need to chase. But then you've got to think, okay, what teammate is up the road? And how does that then relate to your team plan?
Yeah. And I shouldn't say hate, but I really dislike that simplistic version of representation in a break.
Yeah.
And I used to really push on that. Like, okay, if it's these 2-3 riders' jobs to get into early breaks, great. But there has to be a bit more to the plan than just representation in the break of like, all right, you're in the break, you got in there, great. That's you did your job, but your job's far from over. How are you going to ride this break? Who else is in the break? How many in the break?
Yeah.
And that was where I would really push hard on like the why we're putting certain riders in breakaways, because like if that rider can't win from a certain break, then what's the point? Like, of course they can sit on, but like what if there's too many riders in the break and sitting on doesn't actually do that much, and that break still goes to the finish line. So yeah, I was certainly scratching my head with a few teams in that boat for this race to be like, okay, representation, but Rebus is there. There's actually some good climbers in there too that are not too bothered by Rebus there because they know how to play it at the end. So yeah, there was certainly a good chunk of that 23 strong group that, I don't know, I think that they should have been really having a serious think about how they needed to change the situation and what their team should be doing from behind.
I think like really the only team that you can look at and be like, maybe you should have done more is in terms of the big teams, like the big World Tour teams that we expect more from, is maybe just Canyon SRAM, because like obviously we saw from the outcome of the race that like FDJ was happy with that move, rightfully so. They had Juliette Labousse up there. They had like multiple riders in the move, and they had riders who could do the domestique role and like a clear leader in Labousse who was 4th at Strada. So when it came to the Cowberg and like the climbs on the circuit, she was a good rider to have up the road to try to distance Weebus from her and like go for a win. Puck and like Phoenix Akunik would have been happy with that, because she's obviously riding super well and climbing quite well. So she's a rider who could try to fight Weebus. Little Trek potentially like wouldn't have been happy with the combo of their riders in that group, but they also don't have anyone who would have done any better. And like Ellen Van Dijk is riding so well right now, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, I'm sure, but she's riding so well right now that I think she's a rider that you'd be like, yeah, okay, like if we're going to have a rider up there who's going to try to win in some way, it's Ellen Van Dijk. And Anna Henderson she's finding her form, she's getting into it, she's like adjusting, and so she's someone that like, yeah, maybe on paper in that group you're like, I don't know how she could win from this move, but it's a better option than anyone else they have on the roster. But like Canyon SRAM, they could have maybe done more to chase it back. And you could tell that Niewiadoma in the group behind, she wasn't happy with the combo, and maybe the team was realizing that they weren't in it to win anymore at that point. And like, I mean, I think like EF was really happy with just, they had like a good situation going, but I mean, obviously the team that would have been like, heck yes, this is exactly how we wanted the race to play out is SC Works Pro Time. Not only did they have Wiebes in there, but they also had Bredewald, who, you know, has won World Tour races in the past. She's won GP de Plouay twice, I believe. We just need like a real-time fact checker. We just need like Matt to be like in a black box, just like fact checking everything we're doing as we're doing it.
Like the Real Talk has we've graduated to the point where like you can have that person now.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, like SC Works Pro Time would have been happiest. And I think there are other teams that were like, well, this is the best that we are gonna do. But Canyon SRAM, I think I expected more from them.
I disagree. I feel like I thought Visma Bike were big losers in this.
Oh yeah, valid point.
I thought Jaco Lula were big losers in this. I thought Picnic Post NL were big losers in this. I'd say there was 3 or 4 teams that were not well represented in that group, who had riders in that group that should have rode it differently. Not a great situation for Canyon, as you've already explained, but I think Visma Bike were probably the next cab off the rank there that should have changed that. I think they had 2 or 3 riders in that group, but they were not the right riders. Yeah, so not a super great situation for EF, but credit where credit is due. Alison Jackson is on a great run of form at the moment, so I don't think she quite nailed this race, but she is going really well. So she maybe just mistimed a few things, maybe didn't quite have the legs of those top 3 or 4 riders, but like certainly one of the stronger ones in that group, and was having some good attacks there at the end. So that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think I was saying, like Visma should have shuffled the deck again. I think UAE maybe like having Persico and Chapman in the group was good, but maybe not good enough. I think Persico is coming back into some of her best shape again, which is good. And she certainly had a pretty good result there to show. But when you've got Elisa Longa-Borghini back in the group, who's, you know, a winner at the moment, and to have Chapman as well, I think that they are still maybe needing to be a bit more honest with each other and to have better communication in the race. And that's just me being super critical. I'm sure that they did what they thought was best on the day.
Hey.
And another person that was interesting to see going, okay, couldn't quite tell where she's at, but she was in that group, was Ashley Moorman-Passio.
I was going to mention her, but I just want to circle back to Persico. I texted Abby at like 6Ks to go, and I was like, my draft is looking good. I was so excited. And then it didn't. 1K later.
I mean, it's awesome to see Persico back at the pointy end of a race. Like, she had that one incredible season, and ever since then, she's been kind of like floating on the edge, but not really on the podium again. And she didn't land herself on the podium this time, but she was really close. So it was good to see her up there. And I think that one of the reasons that UAE Team ADQ didn't, or like allowed that to be the situation that they were happy with, is because she's like been on the team for a little bit longer than Longa-Borghini, and they would want to give her an opportunity, knowing that she has the ability Like, I think that they would have been like, maybe if it comes down to this group, she can't beat Wiebes, obviously. But like, I think they would have looked at that and been like, okay, it's time we give her a chance, because she's going to be riding for Elisa Lange a lot in the coming months. And so for her to be in this situation and especially with Brody to kind of do some work for her, it would have been like, okay, like, yeah, maybe this isn't ideal, but I think they would have been like, yeah, we're happy with this. And I don't mind that. Because if you're going to like have a rider who is going to be a domestique but can win races, you have to give them opportunity at some point. And this was a good opportunity for Persico, I think.
I think a lot of teams
Yeah,
that
for
bucket
sure.
as well. Like you'd say, like FDJ would have definitely said that about Lebu. I don't know if I mean, there's been people saying that like Demi didn't feel great after she crashed, and so that's when the plan switched to Lebu. But we can't confirm that, considering how Demi then won the bunch kick at the end of the race. So I'm not terribly sure with how she's going there, but you would like to think that that was a similar conversation happening in the FDJ car as well. And then, but another team we haven't actually talked about who also kind of lost out is Movistar, because they Lippert and also back there as well.
Myring is a really talented rider, but she was definitely like left to do a lot of work when the split started happening in the final lap. Like, was definitely kind of one of the bigger, not losers, but like missed out in the end. And she's a rider who, she's kind of an interesting one. Like, she's really good at climbing, but is not really found exactly like what type of rider she is yet, I think.
But I think this generosity for like going for the win is well placed with Persico. It's well placed with Lebu. Like they've got proven Palmares to suggest that they can win from the situation. But I think we've mentioned it earlier. I think a lot of riders need to be realistic about their chances when they're in a group like that. Like as Gracie said earlier, like just because you're in the group doesn't mean you've won the race. Like you still got to win the race. So it's just a matter of being honest with yourself and looking around and being like, if you're someone like, Persico, or I don't know, like looking back at the list of names, if you're someone like, Quinty Ton, for instance, from Jayco, do you then go on the radio knowing you've got Letizia Paternoster in the group behind being like, what do I do here? I can't out sprint these people. I'm not sure if I can even last. What's the go?
Yeah, I think that it's just one of those courses as well that you can't hide. So I think that top 10 and also the top 30 tells a good picture of where a lot of people and teams are at. But let's definitely talk about the top 3 riders, because despite their positions on the podium, they all could vie for the ride of the day. They all had these special moments in the race that were just awesome. I loved how many times Puck Peters attacked in that final lap. She really just puts everyone to the sword to drag Labuse and Persico with her on that third last climb, and then having Bredewald and Van Dijk just dangling off the back for so long. That was awesome that they just like committed straight away. They knew this was the race winning move potentially, and they just worked super hard for as long as they could. But like having the motorbike of Van Dijk and of the strength of Bredewald chasing behind. And Bredewald said that in the interview, like, come on, like there's no way that they can pace faster than us if we work hard together. So they worked hard together as well and came back. So yeah, for me, Puck Peters was super exciting. And I was really hoping she was going to win. The other two, Van Dijk and Bredewald, then also had their moments.
You could just see the calculations going through Van Dijk's head, because looking around at who's in the group with her, and she's riding super well, but obviously like go up a climb like a Kalberg, can she outclimb someone like Lebu and Persico? So again, she is being realistic with her chances here, and she's going, okay, what's the best way that I can win? I've gotten to the break of the break. What is the next step to win? And then her attack at 5Ks to go was perfect on that smaller road.
Yeah, let's just a quick breakdown, like kind of how it happened to jog some memories, including my own. We had up the penultimate lap of the Kalberg, we had Juliette Labuse and Puck putting the pressure on, and then a great attack from Bredewald over the finish line. So then you had like some separations in that group. Riders caught out with the pressure from Puck and Labuse, and then this group formed at the front that included Labus, Puck, and Persico. And then Van Dijk and Bredewald were chasing up to that group. And Bredewald wasn't doing much work, probably rightfully so, with Wiebes and the group behind. And then they all caught on. We had a really incredible attack from Ellen on one of the flat roads in between climbs. And that was when Bredewald finally made kind of one of her big efforts. She bridged up to Ellen, and the two of them had a tiny gap going into the base of the Cowberg, which is where Bredewald attacked, and Ellen was caught by the chasers behind, the three of them, and then the sprint for the line where Ellen just edged out Puck to take second on the line, with Puck taking third, and Bredewald with an incredible solo victory in the end, and just a really emotional win for her. She said in the post-race interview that she's had a rough week emotionally and mentally, and then she's a rider who, like, now that the team is kind of shifting a little bit, that they should lean on her more. And she's had some great wins with them already in the past, but is just such a talent. And obviously she's been European champion, and that race came with its own pile of drama with her late race attack when they were riding for Wiebes. But you could tell just like how happy everyone was for her. And one of the best moments of the race was when Puck immediately just went over and like grabbed her by the face and was like, "You did it," and everything. It was really, like Van Dijk and Bredewald and Puck and Labus that really like made the race. And the four of them were they were the animators. They were the ones who deserved recognition, really. And four riders who I think like we talk about a good amount, but like I would like to talk about more, if that makes sense, because I want to see them more at the pointy end of races like this.
I think we will. And I think we'll see them at the pointy end of races coming up sooner. But like this was, I couldn't help but feel that this was a race for like, for the little guy, for the domestiques. They were able, like, given their chance, and they really delivered. And I think that kind of contributed to the jovial nature of the finish line. So I was really happy to see that. Really great vibes. And my dark horse of Persico, one day she'll get there and move me up the results sheet in the draft. I want to talk about the podium beer. That was the most important race of the day. Like,
man, that was
actually good.
So
like
good.
I posted like a race video and then a video of like that whatever TNT put up as like a reel. Like I did repost that reel on my story on Instagram. I got like 100 people liking that story. I reckon I would have gotten like 5 like the actual race footage.
I saw there were so many people reposting that video, but it was just like so good. I mean, yes,
do you mean like the side by side with the men,
of the men's and the women's?
I did write about this in the newsletter about and how that exemplifies like the knife edge of performance we all walk, and like, are we walking kind of an edge? Like the best was when Tade took a step and then he realized no one else was drinking on this podium, so he turned to them and he finishes the beer.
I'm a little bit torn on alcohol and sports in terms of sponsorship and sculling, like, and especially if that podium was in Australia, I'd just be like, ugh, that's kind of like the culture we're trying to walk backwards from a little bit. But like for like a bit of a legendary moment, it was very fun, and I don't want to be too like PC about it, because like, there is a bit of a balancing act there between sponsorship and what we want kids to be looking at and looking up to, and also just fun and not being so uptight and not being perfect. So like, I liked that they were just mid-sized beers and not like a whole boot of beer like it used to be. So maybe that's a positive.
I believe it was alcohol-free though. Beer.
No, it was like,
oh, okay.
It was alcohol free. I mean, even like the Amstel beer is like 4%, so it's not strong.
Yeah.
It's not a Belgian beer.
Yeah. I mean, I think just like it was a shorter race for the women, so they would have been like slightly less cooked, although it was by all accounts a really hard race from the start. So
wait, let's pedal that back. They're not slightly less cooked just because it's shorter.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, fair, totally fair. I mean, but like you could tell, like, I mean, Skelemos, he just looked like, I mean, in shock, and and his personality is not like, I'm gonna chug a beer right now. And like Remco and Tade, like obviously they wanted a different outcome from the race, so they both look kind of bummed. But then when you kind of put it next to the women's podium, where all three of them just looked so stoked, and the second race of the day with Puck just pulling out her cyclocross / mountain biker, the mountain biker in her, that she could just like down that beer so quick. And she was holding that beer, and I was thinking, is she old enough to even drink that?
Yeah, she did it. She did a great job. Absolute champ.
Oh man, she was phenomenal, amazing. And like, I mean, I loved that Ellen, like kind of the oldest rider on the podium, had to take a breath mid gulp. Like, there were just so many great moments in this podium presentation, and I think like, yeah,
the cadence at which Puck was gulping was a high cadence. That was like an interesting technique, you know. Like I typically go for like, you know, a three chug, and then like open up the palate a little bit, but she went for the high cadence. You know, high cadence, high reward. Chris Froome.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Gracie, about like an alcohol sponsoring a sporting event, and that there is like a fine line. I think, yeah, I just don't want to like read it. There's some I just don't want to read into too much. And Amstel Gold Race is like, they're the title sponsor of the race, the Amstel Gold beer. And so it's just like such an this is a particular one where it's kind of like, yeah, smaller beer, so that's better. Less percentage, does that make it better? Because like if you're watching it, you don't really know that.
Like the drinking culture is a bit different in many of those European countries compared to Australia. So I definitely feel a bit more sensitive to that kind of imagery because our culture here with drinking and alcohol is not great. But I'm not going to go deep dive onto that one right now. So I think like over there, it is like a lot healthier and better managed. So yeah, like I definitely am not saying that they need to not do that on the podium or even change the title sponsor. But yeah, like it's interesting though to have some of these things that have been around for a long time that you don't really want changed, but it doesn't quite fit into the culture of sport in general globally anymore.
I mean, it's like the sex toys race where like all the women just thought it was hilarious, and other people were really offended by the podium box.
Yeah,
but I think,
and actually, like to see three women sculling these little beers was funny and lighthearted and entertaining, and it's almost, not to be sexist, but probably is sexist to say it's a different image to see the men doing that on exactly the same podium on exactly the same day. And I think that's also interesting to see it like that. And much like they made fun of the sex toys, it's like just taking a bit of ownership back into this masculine blokey behavior.
I 100% agree. Like I think like the whole premise around beer is like, you know, men drink beer, women drink wine, or, you know, like women don't drink beer, full stop. I will never forget one of like the formative memories I have of my grandfather. Like I went over to their place for dinner and he's like, what do you want to drink? And I was like, I'll grab a beer. And he nearly fell off his chair. He's like, what do you mean you want a beer? Women don't drink beer. So I love this like recapturing of like a, I don't know, like a motif that the women have done and like how they've made it fun. And also like the jovial nature of the fact that like first through to third were equally as happy to be on the podium. Whereas like contrast that to the men's podium where I thought Remco swallowed a lemon. He looked so pissed off. So
I mean, one of the readings that I got from the side-by-side imagery was more just like proof that brands should sponsor women's cycling. Like, not that that brands shouldn't sponsor men's cycling. I'm not like I don't want to. Yeah, it's not like one or the other, right? It's just saying, look how great your product looks in the hands of these women who are so happy to be on this podium and are like, did not hesitate to down their beers. Like, we've written multiple pieces, you and me, Georgie, on the sponsorship of women's cycling and why brands should be interested in women's sport in general. And watching the podium of this race, I was like, this is why. Like, this is why you want your brand attached to women's sport, because look how well they represent themselves. Not even just the brand. Like, look how well they represent themselves after the races ended. And of course you have women on the podium of races that look like they've swallowed a lemon. Like Vollering on the podium, or was it Wiebes last year on the podium when she like obviously was really upset after she posted up for the win and Voss pipped her at the line. Like you all, that's just like human emotion. Like you have to be understanding and empathetic to that, of course. But you also have moments like this where there's like three incredible women who just had like one of the best races of their careers so far for Puck and Bredewald. And like Ellen, who's had such an incredible story the last 2 years, staying out away from the peloton for a year to have her first child and then coming back, and all the disappointment that she went through last year with the Olympics and her broken ankle. And now that she's coming back into this season and she is flying, and it's so great to see. So you have like these three different stories, three different women in three different stages of their career, and just such an animated race. And then the race ends and all three of them are just so happy to be where they are. Yeah, it was just like such. I was watching this and watching the side by side, and I was like, man, this is like if I'm making like a deck to a brand, and I'm like, why do you want to sponsor women's cycling? I'm throwing this reel into the deck.
Yeah. Like I actually wrote about it in this week's newsletter. Not necessarily about the Amstel and the beer podium, but around like, for instance, Coach has sponsored the WNBA. They're like one of joined Ralph Lauren and Chanel in sponsoring that league, and they also sponsored the draft, like the big draft night, and they dressed like 15 of the athletes for like an orange carpet. So like Gracie, I sent the article to you, like so all the athletes like super fly and like these amazing Coach outfits. And yeah, it was just like really they were allowed to embrace their individuality, and I think that's a beautiful thing about women's sport and why brands want to get involved, particularly non-endemic brands to sport, so brands you don't typically find in the sporting sphere, because it allows women to embrace this individuality that they're already showing, like they're ready for it. So I can't wait to see more of this in women's cycling, because as we've all talked about, like the women's peloton is ready for someone to elevate these individual stories and individual style, and for them to show off exactly what they are and who they are.
Yeah, that's why we need walk-ins.
Yeah, I know. Like, could you imagine like a yellow carpet at the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift reveal?
So good. Although yellow doesn't really go with much.
Gracie will be the independent consultant.
Just being picky about that. It'll have to be a certain type of yellow, but yes, yellow carpet would be great.
Yeah, like someone like Kate Verino would be so about something like that.
Oh man, she would own it. It would be incredible to see. Like, I mean, when it comes to like fashion and women's cycling, obviously we have the kit and all the sign on is on the kit and stuff, but there would be such a cool way to integrate fashion and the individual style of riders into their outward persona, or the what we see of them. Like there are riders that have their curated Instagrams with their outfits and stuff, and I love it. I love it every single time. Like it's just so cool to see. One of the reasons that women are so marketable right now is because people want to see both their off the court, off the bike personas, and also like their athletic persona. And people are so interested in like who they are as a person, as opposed to who they are only like solely as an athlete.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that ties back into this podium and like how these three people represented themselves on this podium, their personalities and who they are as people. And we also, like in that, we also got to see the friendship of Bredewald and Puck and how excited they were for each other, and like them, riding to the podium together and how cute that was. And then also like Ellen and her husband at the finish, and the post that Ellen made after the race of her son watching the two of them on the screen, which was really, really cute. Like, yeah, just it's such a great market to get into for brands because of this.
They will do it. Like they will be left, the sport will be left behind if they don't. So I don't believe that will happen. So they will invest.
And I can't wait to cover it.
Yeah, and you will cover, Gracie.
And you will.
Watch this space.
And then like you've got this incredible ad for Amstel Gold beer with the three of them checking their beers on the podium, but we only got to see 38 kilometers of their race.
Yeah.
Which is like in the end the backing of the race like the money and how much they put to the live coverage and what they can do in terms of that. So I hope that the fact that they can use that Amstel Gold can use this clip in their promotional material for the next year means that they will be more willing to show more of the race in the future.
Is it ASO who runs this?
Amstel Gold isn't ASO. It's like, I think, owned by Amstel, the beer brand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
ASO is Flèche coming up and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but Amstel is kind of its own. The fact that we call the three of them the Ardennes Classics isn't really strictly accurate, as Amstel happens in the Limburg region, and then Flèche and Liège are both the Ardennes more accurately and owned by ASO, which actually like ties in quite well. I think we could dive a lot more into the tactics in the last 20K, in the last like 17K really, and like individual moves made and how just incredible Van Dijk is riding. The fact that Puck is just like inching closer and closer to that World Tour victory. Like she is just, it is not a question of if, it is like when is she going to take a major win? Liège-Bastogne-Liège, like sign me up. I could see that happening for sure. The comeback of Persico, which I already mentioned, and just Breda and what this win means for her and what it means for SC Works Pro Time and her as a rider and how she's not really like a specific kind of rider either. Like she does incredible teamwork, but she can do those punchy climbs. She can do those long moves. She can win from a small group with a sprint like we've seen at Plouay. There's so much we could talk about in terms of that, but I think the conversation about live coverage kind of ties into Flèche Wallonne because this is a race that traditionally has done a really poor job of showcasing the women, and is also a race that is a very, very specific type of rider can win it. So when it comes to like really exciting racing, Flèche is a little bit similar to like Milan San Remo, where it's like the last 2K that are exciting. And we've seen versions of it in the past where the whole last lap has been really great. I'm thinking specifically of the Cavalli win when you had some like incredible Brody Chapman teamwork going into Cavalli's win, and that this was following her Amstel win. So there was like a lot to talk about there. I believe it was 2022. But we've also had races where it's really just been a race to the base of the Muir, and then it's been that's where all the action has happened. So I think kind of going into Flèche, this is a transition that I think we could capitalize on. Yeah, but as you're listening to this, Flèche is tomorrow on the Wednesday, the midweek classic, and this is the one where it's really going into the hands of the climbers. The race finishes on the Muir de Huy, which is just this brutally steep, horrendous climb, and this is the race that Anna van der Breggen won 7 years in a row, but she's not the only previous winner lining up. We also have Cavalli lining up. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot won before those 7 Van der Breggen victories. Niewiadoma is going to be there. So there's multiple winners on the line, but I think when we talk about this race, it's impossible not to talk about Van der Breggen, how Van der Breggen's season has gone so far, the fact that she's not won a race yet, that she's kind of been in a domestique role / finding her footing. But going into Flèche, I think this is like all eyes are going to be on her with how she's won it in the past. And yes, her form is not, I don't think, what it was when she won it 7 years in a row, but it's impossible not to be looking at her and thinking, okay, like what are you going to do? Because it's a test of how she is coming back now for this second run at her career, given what she's done in the past.
I just can't believe Wiebes and Kopecky are doing this race.
I can believe Kopecky.
I cannot believe it.
Kopecky, yeah, but Wiebes needs a rest.
Yeah.
Yes, she really needs a break.
And
surely she's not doing the Vuelta.
No, yeah, but Vos and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, they both have won it in the past. Vos won it. Her first win was in 2007 of this race, which is wild. But they're actually, neither of them are fronting up for Flèche, so they'll be in peak shape for Liège on Sunday. should be interesting. But another non-climber who I was surprised to see in the start of this, but very happy to see given her recent form, is Alison Jackson.
Yeah. When I talked to Allison yesterday, Monday, she said that she wasn't supposed to, she flew back to Girona for 2 nights and she wasn't supposed to be racing, but she's going so well at the moment that they called her up to go race Flèche. And I love to see it. Like, obviously she had a injury in the beginning of the year, a crash that took her out of a lot of the classics, but has come into Paris-Roubaix and these Ardennes great. So if she's riding so well and she's not had the race days, then absolutely like pull her in.
Yeah, and hopefully we see her do something similar to her Roubaix win, in that she Trojan horses it a bit and forces a good breakaway earlier, because this is one of those races that a breakaway has a good chance to get away in points of the race early. So we do see quite a few early breakaways in this race. It always gets brought back pretty much. But I think with the right combination of riders and the right person to be kind of driving that ship is Alison Jackson. So yeah, that could be fun to watch for sure. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with Abby in that, like, the big talking point really will be Van der Breggen. And that was something I thought of immediately when I was watching the Amstel coverage when we saw her pull out, of like, okay, did she just want to hit out? Is she freshening up for Flèche? Because we didn't know that full story straight away. Like, in some ways hoping that was what was the case, in that she was like, yeah, I'm going good for this one and I'm doing everything I can to sharpen up for it, to avoid crashes. You know, I've done my role in Amstel and now I'm going to go get warm in the bus. So yeah, I don't know if she actually was unwell or was hurt in any way at Amstel, but yeah, I'm pretty keen to see how she stacks up against everyone on such a famous climb that she's won so many times on, which is absolutely remarkable. Imagine 7 in a row. That's crazy.
Nuts. And it's a brutal climb too.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I went to Bellevue and I think it averages 10.3%, maxes out at 18.8. Like, that's just,
yeah, that dark red section right there in the middle.
Yeah, but I think Escape published I think in the Daily News it reported that Van der Breggen was actually ill in Amstel, so that's why she abandoned. So maybe I'm hoping she, yeah, to your point, Gracie is just using it, like sensing the illness, using it to sharpen up, and then we'll go again. My God, how do they climb this thing at speed?
Like multiple times too. Like,
yeah.
It's not like it's just the end. There's circuits and there's a climb before it. So it's not like they just, hit this climb once at the end. They have multiple climbs leading up to it and then they have to do it multiple times. I feel like this is a race that I'm so torn about because the coverage has always just been so abysmal that it bums me out. But it also, it's like the start of something new, this race, because it's the first really, really hilly race where you see a lot of the climbers that we're going to talk about in like a week going into the Vuelta. They're going to be at this race and they're either going to be on form now and you will know who to watch for the Vuelta, or they're not. And you also have the riders like Elise Longoborghini, who's not racing the Vuelta, coming back, coming to the end of her run of form before she takes a break leading into the Giro and probably the Tour as well. So it's this coming together of multiple riders, different types of climbers, riders with specific goals. And this is really the beginning. And then obviously we have Liège-Bastogne-Liège on the weekend. That's kind of the end, the bookmark of the spring season, and is another really, that race is just phenomenal. Like, the course is phenomenal. The vibes are great. We don't have a start list yet for Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but it will be pretty much exactly the same. And I think if we're looking at the start list for Flèche, there's we've got Vollering, who won the triple of all 3 of these races in the past and will be really disappointed with how Amstel went. But she also has Labous, who's on a great run of form, Avita Music, who is French and a phenomenal climber, Elise Chabi, who is new to the team and I think will now be transitioning into a domestique role with Vollering coming on and wanting to win this race. Like, Little Trek is bringing in their climber squad. They've got Gaia Riolini, who they rode for in this race previously, who like had a really great performance a couple times. Neve Fisher Black, though, is coming in, and she's like such a great climber and potentially has a better kick than Riolini. So like, how are they going to play that? Liana Lippert, who could absolutely win on a climb like this. Like, she's got such a great kick, and I think that she's riding relatively well right now, and obviously was going super well at Flanders. So that's an interesting one. Niwa Doma, who I think is going to be pretty disappointed in her season so far. So she will want to have a good performance here. There's like just so many riders that like we should be watching. Mags Valieras of EF, she's been riding so well so far this season, and she's a pretty decent climber with a kick, and I don't think she would win if it came to the base of it, but if EF can like do something with her to put her in a good position, then that would be amazing for her. It's just like there's so much that can happen. I think like I don't want to get too excited because of the tactics we've seen so far from the peloton this year, but we could see just like a complete shift in how the race is approached with the amount of riders on the start line who will be wanting this win on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's too many riders here who would be disappointed with how their spring classics have gone to date, and we're getting like they've got this and then Liège to really make a dent into before we start into the tour season. So I'm finding it very difficult to pick a winner. I'm looking at someone like Dominika
Wlodarczyk.
Polish last name, that's the one. Thank you.
Because this isn't a Longo Borghini race.
No, but it's like I'm looking if she can get up the road, even like Magnaldi as well. Like if either one of them can sneak into a breakaway, and as Gracie used before, the term Trojan horse, which I'm stoked about. I love that love that metaphor. Like it is if you got dangerous riders up the road like that, I don't think the peloton has quite nailed like the specifics around if we've got a rider up the road, what do we do? Like if there's a rider up the road, what do we do? So like they will think, oh, UE's got a rider, but it's not Longo Borghini, so we don't need to worry. So I think there's a lot of that thought process that's going on, and that could catch some teams off guard tomorrow.
All right. Well, we'll be looking at a lot of the same riders for Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but instead of us previewing Liège-Bastogne-Liège, we called up an expert. Georgie Howe chatted with Grace Brown, the winner of last year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège, about her win, what went into it, and a really awesome moment of hesitation she had while sprinting, which I liked. This was probably my favorite moment of this chat. So we're gonna wrap up the race convo with this chat with Grace Brown.
Grace Brown, winner of the 2024 Liège-Bastogne-Liège, first ever Australian female to win the race, and also a monument. So very special to have you here to talk about the 2025 edition. So I just wanted to quickly check in. How was your lead into the race in 2024? Like how'd you approach it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a special one actually, because I'd had a pretty dismal spring campaign before then. And yeah, pretty much had nothing to show for myself coming into Liège. But in the week of the Ardennes, like I started feeling pretty good at Amstel. It was a bit of a weird race last year with like half the course being cut out. And then Flèche, I started feeling super good, but like obviously that finish isn't for me. And I think it was just like the day before Liège, I did my openers and I was like, wow, I'm flying. I'm going to have a good one tomorrow. But then, yeah, because I hadn't had a good run in, basically the team just put me down in a working role for the day. And I remember seeing the race plan and my heart just sank. And I was like, oh, I really feel like I'm on a good one. But like the team have different plans. But anyway, because I was so disappointed, I spoke to my coach, I spoke to the race director, and eventually they were like, all right, if you say that you're on, like I was like basically telling them that if they gave me a chance, like I could win the race. And they're like, all right, if you say it, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And will give you an open race plan and do what you need to do to win, basically. Yeah, so that was the lead in. I sort of had to get the team to come round to my side, and kudos to them for I don't know, it felt nice to be respected, and they changed the plan for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we were saying before, like so few cyclists who put their hand up and say, yep, I can win this race, actually deliver. So I think, it's pretty, like it's brave, like it's good for them to show you the respect as you well deserve. I mean, 2024 was a huge year for you, but even prior to that, you've worked for the team for that long and shown form. But then for you to be able to say, I can do this and then actually do it is something else again. So yeah, super cool. And then in the race itself, what was the moment in where you felt like, okay, I got to go now or I'm never going to get there?
Well, Liège is sort of special in the way it plays out. There's this section sort of in the middle of the course for the women that's really hard, and we've seen heaps of years like strong breakaways go. I forget the names of the climbs actually, but there's sort of like a succession of hard climbs. And what I've worked out from previous years is basically if you just ride the front in that section, you end up being in like a really strong selection. I think the first year I came second, I actually had to bridge across to the group that had gone at this point of the race.
Right, yeah.
So I knew like if I just like basically rode the front for 20 Ks, then chances were that I would end up in like a really good breakaway. Yeah, and that's what I did. And it turned out I was with like Elise Shabby, Kim Cadstow, Lucinda Brand, like, you know, it was like ideal scenario. And then it was just a matter of trying to get over Lara Doot and Laura Rochepacon ahead of the climbers that were coming from behind.
Yeah, gotcha. And but then when the climbers caught you, you guys worked pretty well together, and then you came to the finish in a select group. And you've told me before about what happened in that sprint, but I think it's a pretty powerful story because whilst it's such a short period of time, like your thought process went through so many scenarios. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was strange because like I'd felt basically since the point we were caught by like Bollering and Longo Borghini and like Cassia, I was like, okay, this group, like, this is good. I can win a sprint from this group. Like, I was really confident that I could do it. And, like, that confidence went into the last K. Cassia attacked. She got a gap on the group. Longo Borghini went, like, sort of countered and started closing in on her. And then I was just sitting behind Kim Cads. I was like, you're closing this for me. Like, I was like, I'm not going to make an early move. Like, I need to be patient. And I was like, I just felt like this was the right thing to do. And then she sort of started fading and the gap wasn't coming down anymore. I was like, okay, right, this is where I have to start my sprint. And Elisa Borghini started sprinting at the same time. And I caught up to her. And then, I don't know, we were like maybe 15 meters from the line, and I was like just about to pass her, and then I had this moment of doubt. And I was like, oh my God, I can't, this is like Liège. This is a huge monument race. Like, who am I to win this? Like, I don't have the same experience as these girls that I'm trying to beat. Like, I don't know, it's a silly thing in retrospect that these thoughts came into my mind. And if you rewatch the footage, you can see that for a split moment I like sat down on my saddle. And in my memory, this like moment lasted forever, but it's literally like half a second. But then I just like snapped and I was like, no, like, why not me? Like, why can't I be the one to win this race? And I just, got back up and finished off the sprint and managed to win. And it was such an insane moment in my career. I think like I have some pretty good wins from last year, but that was definitely the most exciting.
Oh, I mean, it was incredible to watch. And the jubilation that you crossed the finish line with was undoubtedly one of the best celebrations that we've seen. So Yeah, super, super cool. So you spoke about the like that main climbing section, particularly when you're at the front of the peloton to get into that first selection. So that you mentioned with like Kim Kadzal, etc., and Elise Chabet. So would you say that is probably the main characteristic of the race, or is there another character like part of the race that you would say is pivotal, like La Redoute? What's that main climb you mentioned before?
La Redoute and La Rochefoucauld, I think, are like the key climbs. Like, it's really a race of attrition. I think it's like definitely the hardest race on the classics calendar. It's like with the amount of climbing and like the relentlessness of it, like you're so done by the time like you get to the finish line. So it's not like, I wouldn't say that middle section is like really super defining, but definitely in years we've seen like strong breakaways go there. Which is like a unique feature. Like, people don't just randomly end up in a breakaway at Liège. It's like, really, you have to be a strong rider to get there. So there's like basically those two tactics of winning the race. Either you go long and you survive, or you wait until the two key climbs and try and, if you're a top climber, you can attack there and try and get away. So yeah, it sort of can play out in different ways.
Yeah, it's that makes it so exciting and extremely difficult to predict as how it's playing out, particularly from what we've seen so far of the 2025 season. And as we were saying offline earlier, Amstel gave us absolutely no indication as to who we should be looking for Liège. I mean, obviously there's like Misha's on form, Van Dijk's on form, but as you say, it's the most difficult race on the classics calendar. So who do you see coming to the fore on Sunday?
I think riders like Misha and Van Dijk can definitely do the long game. Like, they've been in that situation before. Van Dijk's been on the podium at Liège. I think after what happened at Amstel, like, a lot of the climbers will be really frustrated with how that played out.
Yeah.
So I think like Flèche just is just like the best climber up the Murderquy wins. Like, maybe we'll see Anna van der Breggen come and win that again.
Yeah.
That'll be really interesting actually. But then Liège, I think the climbers will want to go head to head. So we'll see Elisa Longo-Borghini, we'll see Demi Vollering, maybe Juliette Lebeau can be up there. We saw her come fourth at Strada, so that's really promising. And it'll be interesting to see how they play off each other. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like Demi's going to want to go for it. Okay. And given Amstel's like disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. So then would you be backing Vollering for Sunday, or is there another rider you'd have in mind you want to see on the top step?
There's plenty of other riders that I'd like to see on the top step. I just think Vollering is like the easiest pick. But I think like after last year, I felt a little bit guilty taking it off Elisa in the finish, so I'd like to see her win. And she looked really strong at Brabantse Pijl. Yeah, she did, didn't she? Great to see her back on form after that awful crash at Flanders. All right, Grace. Yeah. Well, we're going to lock you in for Elisa Longo-Borghini for Sunday. We'll have to circle back and see if that comes to fruition. I have been terrible at backing any race so far. Yet to pick a winner. I think my draft picks, I'm well and truly last on the fantasy team draft we've got going. So I'll leave that to you I know, and the other experts to take have over. To go with the head more than the heart. I know. I honestly don't know what I was thinking. So I think I was looking at too much at last year's form, and there's just been some bad luck, But anyway, I'll let you go and. Thank you so much for jumping on and giving us a bit of a rundown of your own experience as a former winner, and looking forward to watching the race on Sunday. Will you be commentating? Is the main question. I will, yes. Okay. Looking forward to that. All right. So tune into SBS. Yeah, Australian listeners, tune into SBS on Sunday night to hear Grace Brown commentate Liège-Bastogne-Liège. All right, Grace, thank you so much. No worries. All right. We're going to wrap up this episode this week, but first, obsessions.
Either of you want to start it off?
I can go first.
Yeah, you go.
I can moleskin journal.
It was like you brought a prop.
I brought a show and tell. For those who are close to me will know that I do love to journal, and my dear moleskin journal got destroyed by a furry child who's 9 months old, named Cooper, and he's a golden retriever. So I was very torn. Many, like, if you heard me talk, many flowing thoughts that are, nonsensical went into that journal. So I was very sad to lose it. So I got myself another one. So I'm obsessed with that.
It's a good color, the red.
Yeah, red. It's good.
I like it.
Nice. Love a good journal. I've got lots of half written in journals.
Yeah.
They're the best.
Yeah, mine are all like half abandoned.
Like we talk about your book, Gracie, just like go into those. That's where the gold is.
Yeah, you're right. There is some good stuff and some really bad stuff, but yeah, that's another day. I'm reading something that's a bit like a journal. I'm reading something old now. I'm reading Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I don't think I've actually read it. Like, I watched the movie when it came out ages ago as well, but I don't think I've ever read the book, so I just opened it up recently, and it's really good. And so far, it's aged well. Brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. It was a good movie too.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and watch that when I finish this book.
Have you got the hard copy?
Rewatch it.
Hard copy or Kindle?
Hard copy.
Yeah, I love a hard copy.
I buy a lot of my books secondhand. So I do have a Kindle, but I don't really use it much except for if I'm traveling. I just read hard books at home.
I love the smell of books. I can't do an e-reader. I've tried so many times. The only time that I've ever enjoyed an e-reader is when you're breastfeeding in the middle of the night. Yeah. Then the e-reader is pretty amazing. Mine is also a book. So we are all about books this week. I just finished Back After This, which is by Linda Holmes, who is one of my favorite podcasters for NPR. But she also writes novels, and her latest one, Back After This, is a book about a podcast host. A love story of a podcast host. So it's really the coming together of multiple passions of mine, which is romance novels.
That's very
and
meta.
Podcasting. Yeah. I read it in like 3 days, and yeah, just because it was just like a really quick, easy read. Nothing too deep, nothing too crazy, but just like one of those really nice, easy reads. And I needed like a palate cleanser of a book, kind of. So highly recommend Back After This by Linda Holmes.
Love a palate cleanser.
Nice.
They're just so good.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes you just really need it, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, brilliant.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. This was a long one, and hopefully I get more sleep before the next one. We'll be back to talk about Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche Wallonne next week.